In this video, I wanted to see if I could beat a hardcore Nuzlocke of Renegade Platinum using only water-type Pokémon. That's right, I'm diving back into Renegade Platinum, an advanced difficulty ROM hack of Pokémon Platinum in what could be my hardest challenge run yet. Luckily, Sinnoh has a huge variety of water types to catch, and when I say huge, I mean a stupid amount. With these aquatic friends by my side then, I might just have a fighting chance of getting through this challenge. This is not going to be easy though, because under my hardcore Nuzlocke rules, if a Pokémon faints, it's considered dead and must be released. I can also only catch the first water type encounter in each area. The rest of the rules are on screen now and in the description. With the challenge set up and the rules established, let's not waste any more time and jump straight in to see if we can beat this hardcore Nuzlocke. So first things first, we've got to pick our starter, and obviously that means we're getting ourselves a Piplup. Now, all three of these starters have updated abilities in this ROM hack, but unfortunately, Piplup has the least useful of these new abilities. Cod is still a great way to start this run though, and Piplup was the first ever starter Pokemon I picked as a kid, so I'm not complaining about bringing my little penguin along on this journey. It's then time to start collecting our early game encounters, and I get a lot of encounters before our first gym, so I'll keep things as brief as I can and split my encounters into two sections. Firstly are the Pokemon that help with my weakness to grass and electric attacks. I'm able to find a Surskit I name Pollock, a Magikarp I name Mullet, Mantike I name Carp, a Barboach I name Tuna, and finally a Lotad I name Haddock. Getting all of these Pokemon so early is really useful for countering my water type's main weaknesses, so this run is off to a good start. The second selection of water types I catch are a tad more generic, but that doesn't mean they're any less useful. I'm able to find a Krabby I name Anchovy, an Eevee I name Clam, who will eventually become everybody's favourite overused joke, a Squirtle I name Oyster, and lastly a second crab, this time a Corfish, I name Shrimp. With all of those encounters collected, I'm decently set up for the early game, meaning I can make my way to Auburg City, where my first gym battle awaits. Of course, before that, guess what? More encounters. Luckily, it's just one more though. In the Pokemon Center, I can grab a Mudkip I name Herring. With all of those encounters out the way, and after evolving a few of my Pokemon, we're ready to take on the first gym leader of Renegade Platinum. Now thankfully, the first gym leader in this game is Rourke, the Rock-type specialist, and unsurprisingly, even in a game as hard as Renegade Platinum, I'm not going to struggle against the Rock Gym in a water-only run, and this fight is pretty free. Herring does have to take a couple of hits, but my Hoenn starter is able to completely decimate Rourke's whole team with water pulses. Good start to this run, easy first gym badge. This fight might have been completely free, but is only going to get more difficult from here though. Before we get any further into the run, I would like to take a quick second to ask if you enjoy this video, remember to leave a like and subscribe so you never miss a video. I've also got channel memberships open for only £1 a month if you really want to go out of your way to show your support for what I do and the videos I make. No pressure though, any support you show, even if it's just by watching my videos, is appreciated. Anyway, let's move on from this self-plug and carry on with the run. So now we've got a decent amount to get through before our second gym badge. Firstly, thanks to our new level cap of 26, I'm able to evolve Pollock into Masquerain and Mullet into Gyarados. By a lucky coincidence, both of these Pokemon are actually pretty important for our next gym battle, so this is actually very good timing on these evolutions. Next, I'm able to head to Floroma Town to pick up another encounter, a Totodile I name Crayfish. Normally Totodile would be fairly unremarkable, but this ROM hack has not only made Crayfish a dark type, he's also gotten the ability Intimidate, meaning he's actually really useful going forward. Then I can head over to Route 205 and catch myself a Chinchou I name Squid. While I do have other counters to electric types, Squid is one of the only electric water types I get during this run, so he's extremely important. With that, we've got our first Team Galactic admin Mars to deal with, and while Mars's Fat Cat can be scary, with 3 Intimidate users, this fight really isn't that difficult, meaning we can make it through with no problems. That means I can head north to Eternia City to grab my last 2 encounters before our next gym. Inside Mount Cornet, I'm able to catch a Feebas I name Scallop, And then I'm able to catch a Rotom I named Mackerel. Now obviously Rotom isn't a water type, but I'm able to change that fairly quickly a little ways down the road. With that, I've got one last thing to do. I'm able to crush an old man's dreams by scamming him out of an Explorer kit. Stealing this man's Explorer kit gives me access to water stones and a couple more evolutions. With that, it's time for our second gym battle of the run, this time against Gardenia and her grass types. This fight is the complete opposite of Rourke in terms of difficulty, but I do at least have some decent counters for Gardenia's team. So Gardenia starts with Bellossom and I start with Mullet. The annoying thing about Bellossom is that it likes to spam status ailments like Stun Spore and Teeter Dance. I'm hoping Mullet can KO this stupid thing as quickly as possible then, so I immediately go for an Ice Fang that fails to do over 50%. Bad start. Mullet then gets hit by a Stun Spore, but thankfully a Cherry Berry heals the paralysis. I then go through a slightly risky bounce, but the risk pays off as the move connects, taking down Gardenia's first Pokemon. Definitely didn't need a crit there, but not going to complain. Second for Gardenia is Tangela, who has Shockwave and Ancient Power, meaning I can't leave Mullet in. I decide to send in Haddock, who avoids a Stun Spore on the switch. There's only one reason I brought Haddock to this fight, and that's to spam Captivate. Captivate is eventually able to bring the bundle of weeds down to -6 special attack, which completely neuters the Tangela's threat to my Pokemon. With Tangela crippled, I'm safe to switch into Pollock, who has been made a bug water type in this ROM hack. Pollock takes a whopping 2 damage from a Grass Knot on the switch, and now he's in a great position to rip Gardenia's team apart. Tangela goes down to a single Signal Beam, Breloom is next and goes down to a 4 times effective Air Cutter. Gardenia's next Pokemon Cherrim is able to survive a hit thanks to a Focus Sash, but I just keep spamming Signal Beams, and eventually Cherrim also falls. All that leaves the Gardenia is Grottle and Roserade, and thanks to a crit Psybeam, both of these Pokemon go down in one attack. Pollock is a beast. I honestly expected that fight to be a major roadblock, but thanks to my water bug, that was honestly very straightforward. With that, we've won our second gym badge. Moving on, we've once again got a decent amount to get through before our next gym fight in Hearthome. Let's start off with some more evolutions, as we're able to evolve Tuna, Squid and Anchovy into their final forms. I then have a second team Galactic admin to deal with, and Jupiter is slightly more of the challenge than Mars. I'm still able to make quick work of her though, meaning I can carry on with my adventure. After heading down the cycle path, and definitely not forgetting to talk to the cycle shop owner, I can take a shortcut back to Orberg and grab myself a fossil Pokemon. I decide on Kabutops, who I name Swordfish, and Swordfish is going to be really useful very shortly. While evolving Swordfish, I also remember to evolve Crayfish into Feraligatr. I then got 3 mini-bosses to get through before I make it to Hearthome, and the first of these goes down without any problems. It's the second mini-boss against Lucas where I have a slight issue. Gramble has been intimidated, so I think it's safe to switch, and unfortunately Tuna gets crit, going down in one shot. That was some bad luck, but at the very least I do have another ground water type with the potential for more, so this loss isn't the end of the world. I am also able to beat Lucas' broke ass in Revenge, so that's something. On the other side of Mount Cornet, before our third and final mini-boss, I am able to catch one more encounter, a Remoraid I name Bass. As well as having fairly decent coverage, once he evolves, Bass allows Carp to evolve into Mantine, which is always a plus. Right, now there's only one more thing standing between me and Hearthome, a battle against the Elite Four's bug specialist, Aaron. This fight is always a potential run-ender, so here's hoping this goes well. I start with Swordfish in his debut battle, and Aaron starts with Dustox. Dustox is a toxic staller, so the quicker it goes down, the better. I decide to spend a turn setting up a Stealth Rocks though, which works out perfectly because Dustox just goes through a Protect. Swordfish then takes a Toxic, but the poison is immediately cured by a Berry. A single Rock Slide then one-shots the annoying bug. Good start. Second is Beautifly, who is brought to 50% by Stealth Rocks. I could finish off the bug here with a Rock Slide, but Energy Ball is super threatening, so instead I switch into Pollock. Pollock still takes a decent amount from an Energy Ball on the switch, but then my favourite bug is able to strike back with an Air Cutter for the knockout. Third for Aaron is Venomoth, who does survive a Psybeam and land a Bug Buzz that brings Pollock low. Pollock is still the MVP by far though, because after surviving the Bug Buzz, she's able to land 2 more Psybeams for the KO as Aaron heals. Fourth for Aaron is his Drapion, and this is the first of the major threats in this fight. This monster Scorpion has the ability Sniper, increasing the damage of all of its critical hits. On top of this, it's holding a scope lens to increase the chance of it scoring a crit, along with moves that are all more likely likely to crit. If that wasn't bad enough, it also has the move Swords Dance, meaning if I'm not careful, this stupid Scorpion could easily end this run. I decide on a slightly risky strategy, but if it works, I'll be in a much better spot. So I decide to switch into Mackerel, who is now part Washing Machine. Thankfully, Mackerel doesn't get crit on the switch, but now I have to pray I don't get crit again, and hope to God Will-O-Wisp lands here. So I go for the attack, and Mackerel lands it, thank God. Not out of the woods, but I'm now in a much better position. Right, with the Drapion crippled, I'm now in a much better spot to switch into Mullet, and I get crit and poisoned. Right, well that could have gone better. So let's go for plan B. This time I switch into Swordfish on a cross poison that doesn't do a lot. A Night Slash then thankfully doesn't crit, meaning Swordfish can take down the Scorpion. Thank God that thing's gone, but we're not done yet. Unfortunately, I've still got Sizzle to deal with, but at the very least, Swordfish should have a high enough defense to take at least 1 or 2 hits here. I go through a Waterfall and actually nearly get a one-shot thanks to a crit. Sizzle just sets up with the Swords Dance. That means one more Waterfall is enough to finish off the Punching Bug. Honestly, that crit wasn't needed because I would have outsped there anyway, but I'm just thankful we got past that fight with no deaths. With that, we can finally make it to Hearthome City. Making it to Hearthome means it's time to deal with Fantina and her ghost types. Just got to get 2 more evolutions out the way beforehand, and with that, we've got to tackle another major roadblock of the run. Luckily, I've got a pretty decent team going into this fight, so let's go win that 3rd gym badge. So Fantina starts with Drift Blimp, and I start with Crayfish. Now this Blimp is actually really easy to cheese thanks to Captivate. If you spam Captivate with a male Pokemon, Drift Blimp will start spamming Calm Mind. Because Captivate lowers the Drift Blimp's special attack by 2 and Calm Mind increases it by 1, you can eventually bring the Balloon down to -6 special attack. The Balloon will then baton pass this attack drop onto a different Pokemon, in this case Miss Magius, giving you a much easier time KOing what would otherwise be a really threatening Pokemon. Or this would be the case unless you leave your Dark type in against a Fairy type, completely risking a crit for no real reason. Rest in peace Crayfish, that was completely on me. If nothing else, Swordfish is then able to easily KO the Miss Magius with Waterfalls, but losing Crayfish there is what I get for not playing around crits. Second for Fantina is once again the Blimp, which means more Captivate spam, this time with Scallop. Annoyingly, I do get crit for a second time, but Scallop survives and does have Recover, so it's not a huge problem. Eventually, after spamming Captivate to bring the Drift Blimp back down to -6, Fantina baton passes again, this time into Gengar. I have at least learnt my lesson from last time about not risking crits, so instead of risking Scallop, I decide to switch into Swordfish on what I assume will be a Sludge Bomb. Instead though, Swordfish is hit by a Will-O-Wisp. Right, that's annoying. One of my strongest physical attackers crippled. I do decide to stay in and get off 1 hit though, and Night Slash does okay damage. Swordfish does have his defense lowered though, meaning I'm now forced to switch. I decide on Pollock, so I don't have to worry about Will-O-Wisp, as Pollock is a special attacker. Now Gengar is at +6 special defense, meaning it's going to take a couple of Psybeams, but eventually Gengar does finally go down. The Blimp comes back out for the 3rd time, so you know what that means. Captivate time. I'm getting really sick of this, but at least it works, and this time I use Scallop to take down the Blimp before it switches for the 400th time. Up next then is Spiritomb, who Scallop can easily take down with Dazzling Gleams. That just leaves Fantina's 2 physical attackers, Dusclops and Bayonet. While tanky enough to be annoying, neither of these Pokemon are actually that threatening by themselves, meaning Scallop has no problem taking them both down. With that, we've won a tedious but fairly straightforward 3rd gym battle. With Fantina taken down, I've got a new level cap of 39, and that means my 3 surviving starter Pokemon are able to evolve into their final forms. I then have a very long walk to Veilstone, but honestly nothing interesting happens on the way there, so we're just going to skip straight to our next gym battle against Maylene and her fighting types. So Maylene's Pokemon all hit pretty hard, but they're all pretty frail and kind of slow, so hopefully this won't be too challenging. Maylene starts with Medicham and I start with Scallop. Scallop does have to take a Fake Out and then a super powerful Zen Headbutt, but then my Milotic is able to hit back with a Moonblast for the one-shot. Second is Toxicroak, who threatens with Poison Jab. Luckily, Mullet is a perfect Pokemon here to take down this Throg, as I can switch in and get off an Intimidate, which reduces the Poison Jab's damage, and then one-shot with a Bounce. Easy. Third for Maylene is the Machamp, who is probably one of Maylene's scariest Pokemon. I'm hoping with some clever switching I can handle it though, so I switch into Herring healing on a Thunder Punch. I can then switch into Carp on a close combat that still does a huge amount. That worked perfectly though, because I can now outspeed and one-shot with an Air Slash thanks to the defense drops from close combat. Oh, or not. Well, rest in peace, Carp. I'm not sure how bad Carp's special attack is, but Jesus, that really should have been a KO. If nothing else, the Machamp also goes down thanks to poison. Up next is another scary Pokemon, Infernape. As the Infernape comes out though, I send out Mullet through an Intimidate. Now I decide to take a bit of the risk. I'm pretty sure Mullet can survive the Rock Slide thanks to that Intimidate, but obviously I'm still risking a crit. So I hold my breath and the Rock Slide doesn't KO, meaning the monkey goes down to an Aqua Tail. Next is Galactic, who isn't a problem as it just goes down to a single bounce. All that leaves the Maylene is her ace Lucario, and I decide on Pollock here as Lucario really can't touch my bug. Pollock is still proving to be the MVP, and she's able to take down the Lucario with 2 Bubble Beams. Pretty straightforward gym fight, shame about Carp, but I don't think it's a huge loss going forward. 4th gym badge acquired. For the first time this run, it's not actually that long before we reach our next destination, Pastoria City. Once we reach Pastoria, I actually only get 2 more encounters before it's time for our next gym. Outside of Pastoria, I find a Gastrodon I name Flounder. Flounder is another really strong ground water type, and being especially defensive, Gastrodon doesn't overlap too much with Swampert. Then I can head into the Great Marsh to find another useful Pokemon. I'm able to catch a bitey little piranha I name John Dory. Sharpedo's dark typing is going to be vital at certain points during this run, so I'm just happy to add the bitey fish to my roster. One last thing to do before the gym then, and that's battle what I consider the first challenging rival battle of the game. Dry has finally got his full team together, and I always struggle with this one. Good news, I do get through this fight. Bad news, Pollock gets murdered. I hate my rival so much. Let's just move on to the next gym. The fact I'm upset about my Masquerain dying probably says a lot. Anyway, let's go get our next gym badge. Up next is Wake. It's time for a water v water matchup, and I'd actually argue this is a pretty tough gym, so hopefully this fight goes well. Wake starts with Quagsire, and I start with Haddock. Quagsire is very happy to see me and is holding a berry, causing my Giga Drain not to one-shot. Thankfully though, even with the berry, Giga Drain is still doing a lot, and Quagsire can't really hurt Haddock in retaliation. This means I can two-shot the Happy Throg with no issues. Second is Gyarados, so I immediately switch into Mackerel as the dragon starts setting up. Scary. What's worse is thanks to another berry, a Thunderbolt doesn't get the KO, allowing Gyarados to set up to +2. I'm not sure if +2 is enough to one-shot Mackerel, but I'm hoping that he'll survive as he resists all of Gyarados' moves. I decide to take a risk with Mackerel's life, and Aqua Tail misses. Okay, thank God, needed that luck. Third for Wake is Ludicolo, so I switch into Mullet on a Fake Out. My Gyarados then does have to take a fairly hard energy ball, but Mullet tanks the hit and then one-shots with a bounce. Up next is Floatzel, who will hit really hard thanks to a Life Orb. Once again, I'm pretty sure Mackerel can tank a couple of hits though, so I switch in on an Aqua Tail that hits hard. Despite that doing a lot, I now know I can take another hit, so I go through a Thunderbolt and get crit. Well, suppose that makes up for my luck against the Gyarados. Rest in peace, Mackerel, you were taken from us too soon. My first electric type didn't work, so let's hope the second manages. I send in Squid and immediately take another Aqua Tail for a massive amount. Jesus, this thing is nasty. At least Squid tanks the hit and fires back with a Thunderbolt to finally take down the vicious Weasel. Up next is Poliwrath. Now Poliwrath isn't nearly as scary as that Weasel was, so I decide to stay in and get off the Thunderbolt for good damage. Can't risk Squid any more than I already have though, so I switch into Haddock, who of course gets crit. Thankfully, Haddock has a Rain Dish and Leftovers, meaning he's able to heal a stupid amount of damage every turn. Combined with Giga Drain, Poliwrath really can't KO my hat-wearing Pokemon. Only problem is, thanks to Drain Punch heals, Haddock can't really KO the Poliwrath. This starts a very long back and forth that eventually Haddock does win. I think I just lost a few years off my life. All that leaves the wake is Sharpedo, and luckily I've got Anchovy, who should be able to handle this thing with an X-Scissor, or my defense will be lowered on the switch. Okay, plan B, I switch into Mullet for an Intimidate and take another Crunch. I then switch into Bass, who is able to do good damage with a Seed Bomb, but fails to KO and won't survive another hit. I decide to risk Mullet one more time to get off another Intimidate, and then I switch back into Anchovy, who has his defenses lowered for a second time. I hate this shark. Well, now I have to risk Anchovy because no one on my team can survive another switch, so I pray to God my crab will survive, and he does, barely, meaning I'm able to win the battle with an X-Scissor. Right, that got a bit dicey, but thankfully got through with only one death, 5th gym badge acquired. Now we've got to move on to everyone's favourite part of Pokemon Platinum, terrorism. Anyway, I've now got about 400 mini-bosses to get through, and honestly, they're not that interesting. Also, if I showed all of them, this video would be about 2 hours long. Instead of showing you these battles then, here's some footage of me catching a fish made out of rocks. I also catch a squid. Right, next gym time, we've got Byron, the Steel-type gym leader, to deal with. I won't sugarcoat it, there's a lot of challenging gym battles in this ROM hack, but Byron isn't exactly one of them. He starts with the Bronzong that sets up a Stealth Rocks before going down to Bass's flamethrowers. Now the rest of this fight is a complete sweep. Wondering what clever plan I came up with for this? Well, I spammed Surf and Earth Power with Flounder. Mullet was also there for some extra support. Nice 3 gym battle. Always nice to have one of those entering in to the later half of this game. 6th gym down, 2 more to go. Before we can head to our 7th gym battle though, we have to sit through more terrorism. I love this children's game. Luckily, a walk in the snow helps me take my mind off of all of this terrorism, so before you know it, we're at our 7th gym battle of the run. That means it's time to deal with Candace and her ice types. I'm hoping this fight won't be too tricky, considering I resist Candace's ice attacks, but she's still got some fairly strong Pokemon, so this might get ugly quick. Candace starts with the Bomber Snow, and I start with Mullet. A single bounce is enough for a one-shot, 1 down, 5 to go. Second, Candace immediately sends out the big guns, her ace, Frostlass. Now, I can pretty much guarantee a Thunderbolt here, so I switch into Flounder. I can then switch into Oyster, who not only avoids a Blizzard on the switch, but also stops the hail thanks to Drizzle. Without 100% accurate Blizzards, Frostlass is suddenly a lot less scary. I'm still expecting another Thunderbolt though, so I switch back into Flounder, and surprisingly, Frostlass just goes for an Attract. That's not really a problem though, because I was just switching through Flounder to get John Dory sent out. Holy shit, really should have PP stalled Frostlass out of Blizzard PP, huh? Oh well, my sloppy gameplay has worked out as always, because I can now outspeed and KO with a crunch. Up next is Glaceon, who would be a lot more scary if Hail was still up, thanks to its ability Snowcloak. Without Hail though, I don't have to deal with that, so I'm pretty safe to switch straight into Oyster on an Earth Power. Glaceon then starts setting up double teams, but I'm able to put it to sleep with a Yawn before it's able to get off too many. 2 Aura Spheres are then enough for another easy KO as the Evolution naps. Up next is Walrein, so same plan as last time, put the ice Pokemon to sleep with Yawn. Oh, okay then. Using my human brain though, I can outsmart the AI by just switching into Squid as the Walrus falls asleep, and then 2 Thunderbolts pick up another KO. 2 more to go then. First up is Mamoswine, and I'm pretty sure I can one-shot this thing with a strong water move, but thanks to a berry, this is less straightforward. Luckily, I'm pretty sure there's an Earthquake coming my way, so I can safely switch into Mullet. I then switch into Oyster on a Stone Edge that misses. Perfect. It's then a simple case of putting the Mammoth to sleep with Yawn before KOing with a couple of Surfs. All that's left to deal with then is Weavile, who immediately goes to a Swords Dance. That would be scary, but thanks to another Yawn, Weavile is easily taken down by Oyster. Got kinda lucky during that fight, but it also still went pretty smoothly. That just leaves one last gym to take down, but first we've got to deal with Team Galactic. Dealing with Team Galactic and all their terrorism is actually pretty straightforward up until we get to the top of Mount Cornet, where we have to deal with one of the coolest additions to this ROM hack, the 12v12 battle against Commander Mars and Jupiter. This fight is no joke, as well as having to deal with the 12 varied Pokemon Mars and Jupiter bring to this fight, I also have to rely on my rival. Relying on the AI to be competent is never a fun place to be, but if you've seen my 2 previous videos on Renegade Platinum, you'd know that I've actually gotten pretty lucky the other 2 times I've attempted this battle. I've basically been able to spam Protects long enough for my rival to do most of the work. I have no idea if this plan's going to work for the 3rd time, but fingers crossed this goes well. So Mars and Jupiter both start with their Crobats, while I start with Oyster to set up the rain as my rival starts with Staraptor. I immediately start the fight with a Protect, which saves me from being hit by a Torment. Annoyingly though, instead of doing good damage to one of the Crobats, thanks to a double team, Staraptor misses a Brave Bird. What's worse, on the following turn, as I switch into Sword Swordfish, Staraptor takes a huge amount from a Brave Bird. If that wasn't bad enough, Staraptor misses for a second time. Missing twice means that Staraptor wasn't able to land a single attack, as he's KO'd by another Brave Bird on the following turn. If nothing else, Swordfish takes a Sludge Bomb like it's nothing, and then lands a Rock Slide for decent damage. Up next to my rival is Snorlax, who I'm hoping will be able to do a bit more than Staraptor. Huh, okay then. Well, at least that's one of the Crobats down, but my rival is clearly not pulling his weight like he did the last 2 times I did this fight. Next to the Galactic admins are Gastrodon and Electivire. I'm pretty sure I bait both attacks here, so I go through a Protect, which works perfectly as it allows Arcanine to get off some decent damage, while my side of the field takes no hits. I then switch into Flounder as Arcanine gets off another close combat, this time into Electivire. Annoyingly, unlike last turn, Electivire doesn't go for the electric attack, instead getting off a strong cross chop into Flounder. The opposing Gastrodon then lands a Muddy Water that one-shots the Arcanine and very nearly KOs Flounder. Ouch. Right, only taken down 2 bats so far, and my rival has lost 3 Pokemon. Hopefully my luck improves, or this is going to get ugly fast. At the very least, Flounder is now 100% baiting both the admin's attacks, so I can Protect again, which lets my rival KO the Gastrodon for 3 with Torterra. Jupiter then sends out her Tangrowth, which is probably the most threatening Pokemon both Mars and Jupiter have. I'm hoping Haddock can handle it though, so I switch in as the Electivire misses a cross chop. A single Wood Hammer then takes down the menacing electric type as Tangrowth gets off a Giga Drain that doesn't do a huge amount. I was starting to get some momentum, but annoyingly, next is Yanmega, and this is not a pairing I wanted to face. No one on my team can resist both Bug and Grass attacks, so I'm now in a tricky spot. I can go through a Fake Out, however, to give myself some breathing room, and I get really lucky because my rival lands a Stone Edge, which takes down the Yanmega. Perfect. We're making our way through this. Next is Kangaskhan, who Uno reverses me by getting off its own Fake Out. Torterra is still able to get off another Wood Hammer that does really good damage. Unfortunately though, Haddock then takes a Sludge Bomb that not only does a lot, but also poisons. Right, well that was damage I would have rather had not taken. Thankfully I can now Protect on the next turn, which allows Torterra to KO the Kangaskhan. I'm now in an awkward spot again, because I don't have anyone that can really take any Grass type attacks, but I can't leave Haddock in. I decide to risk sending in Swordfish, who at the very least basically resists anything that's not a Grass type attack. As I switch, Torterra continues to make good work by picking up another KO with another Wood Hammer, but unfortunately I don't get lucky with Swordfish as he's hit with a Focus Blast that cleanly one-shots. Rest in peace Swordfish, was in a bad position there and you had to take one for the team. With Swordfish down, I decide to send in Skollop, who has the highest special defense on my team, so I'm hoping he should be able to take a couple of hits from this annoying Tangrowth. My rival then sends out Heracross, so I'm hoping he'll focus down the threatening bundle of vines. Of course though, instead he goes for a close combat into the Bronzong while I Protect. Great. Even with the defense drop though, the Heracross does survive a Zen Headbutt. I'm really hoping maybe my rival will now get off a powerful Mega Horn into the Tangrowth, but unfortunately he's hit by a Focus Blast. At the very least, Moonblast does 50%, while another Zen Headbutt into Skollop doesn't really do much. Moonblast actually did more than I was expecting there, meaning I'm actually not in that bad of a position. My rival's down to his last Pokemon though, Azumarill. Luckily, I get a crit on the following turn, as another Moonblast connects into the Tangrowth, finally taking down the Grass monster. Azumarill is then able to connect into the Bronzong with an Aqua Tail, taking down the Bell. Mars has actually ran out of Pokemon at this point, meaning that the rest of this fight is a lot more straightforward. Anchovy is able to take down the Skunk, Skollop is able to finish off the Bronzong, and then finally all that's left is Sableye, who is easily dealt with thanks to Moonblast. Jesus, that fight got messy, but we made it through with only 1 death. That just leaves 1 more battle to deal with, and Galactic is down. We've got to face Cyrus in the Distortion world. Cyrus's team is pretty stacked, but after the craziness of that 12v12, I'm ready for anything. So Cyrus starts with Crobat, and I start with Skollop. Skollop is the perfect thing to start with here, because he baits the cross poison. That means I can switch into Cod, who is immune to the poison attack, and thanks to a choice band, Crobat is now locked in to the attack. That means I'm completely free to take down the bat with zero risk. Second is Magnezone, so I can just switch into, oh shit, completely overlooked Magnet Pull. Magnet Pull stops me switching out. That's unfortunate because it means there's nothing I can do to stop COD going down here. Rest in peace COD, that was a stupid mistake and completely on me. At least COD going down means I can revenge kill the Magnet with Flounder after taking a Signal Beam. Next to Cyrus is Haunchcrow, who is actually really scary. This thing will hit like a truck, but I've got the perfect counter in Flathead. Flathead can come in, take a Brave Bird, avoid a Sucker Punch with Yawn, and then it's just a case of switching into John Dory for an easy KO. Next is Gyarados, so I switch back into Flathead on a Dragon Dance. While the powered up Gyarados is obviously super threatening, Flathead is tanky enough to completely eat an Aqua Tail like a champ before landing a head smash for the one shot. Of course, Recoil then does take down Flathead, but honestly, Rockfish did its job and it did it well. Thank you, Rockfish. I can now pretty much guarantee Houndoom will be sent out next, so I send out John Dory. My prediction is correct, so I'm in a perfect position to protect the return for Speed Boost to activate and then one shot with a Waterfall. Okay, holy shit, thank god that didn't poison. John Dory is either very unlucky or very lucky. I can't actually tell. All that leaves to Cyrus is Weavile, who would usually be a massive threat. Scallop is the perfect counter here though, so I can easily defeat Cyrus by spamming Moonblast. Okay, not that easily, but a win's a win. With Team Galactic down, we're nearly at the end of this journey. Still got one more gym badge to grab though, and that means taking down Volkner and his electric type Pokemon. Now obviously, water type only run, electric type gym leader, bad combination. Luckily, I've got a lot of counters through electric types. The only problem I'm going to face is Raichu and Jolteon, as they both have grass type attacks. Thankfully, Squid is the perfect counter here. She's strong enough to take non-stab grass moves and can't be hurt by electric attacks, meaning I can just spam Surf until the Jolteon falls. Second is Raichu, who goes down the exact same way. Next is Electivire, who is actually pretty scary for Squid thanks to Earthquake. I've got another plan to deal with this though, and that's Mullet. I can switch Mullet in whenever Squid baits an Earthquake, and then switch Squid in whenever Mullet baits a Volt Tackle. Combined with Intimidate, I can do this 6 times until the Electivire is at -6 attack, and then safely KO with Haddock. Fourth, the Volkner is Luxray, who is holding a Life Orb. Life Orb means this thing is going to hit like a truck, so I switch into Mullet to get off another Intimidate. Then I switch into Herring and take some really nasty crunches. Herring is able to just hang on long enough though to one-shot the Zappy Lion with an Earthquake. All that leaves to Volkner are his 2 Rotoms. These things aren't actually that hard to deal with because I can exploit Rotom Wash's weakness to grass with Haddock, and then the Rotom Heat's weakness to water with literally my whole team. That fight could have been annoying, but coming up with a plan for each of Volkner's Pokemon made it pretty straightforward. With that, we've gotten all 8 gym badges, and that means it's time to head to the Pokemon League. Of course, getting to the Pokemon League means getting through Victory Road, and there's a lot of scary trainers here, as well as some more strong mini-bosses. With a bit of pre-planning though, I'm able to avoid any accidents and make it through the final dungeon with no problems. That means it's time to build a team for this Elite Four, and this is never an easy task. In Renegade Platinum, all of the Elite Four and the champion have 4 random teams that they could use, meaning coming up with a plan that can handle all of the different possibilities I'm about to face is nothing short of a nightmare. I do eventually come up with a team that I think can take me all the way, so let's see who we're bringing. First off, we've got Mullet the Gyarados, our heaviest hitter, who also brings an immunity to ground type attacks and Intimidate support. Second, we've got Squid the Lantern, whose ability Volt Absorb is vital for getting past any scary electric attacks. Third, we're bringing Dogfish the Tentacruel, who as well as being my counter to my glaring grass weakness, will also be my main counter for any scary fairy types I run into. Fourth, we've got the ever reliable Oyster the Blastoise, whose bulk and ability Drizzle make him a vital support Pokemon. Fifth, we've got John Dory the Sharpedo, who is ridiculously fast and a strong counter for Lucian and his psychic types. That just leaves one more spot on this team, and I decide to fish just outside the Pokemon League for one last encounter. Here I managed to find one of the most broken and overpowered Pokemon in this ROM hack. That's right, a Love Disc. Now, if you're unfamiliar with this game, you might be a bit confused, but trust me when I say Love Disc has has received some ridiculous buffs. Goldfish is the perfect Pokemon to round out my team, so let's jump in and end this run. Remember to leave a like to wish me luck. Let's go win ourselves a championship. So first up for this Elite Four is Aaron and his bug types, and I was already able to beat this battle earlier in the game, so doing it for a second time isn't actually that difficult. Mullet is able to take down Venomoth, Armaldo, Pinsir, and Drapion while only having to take a crit from the Scorpion. All that leaves is Sortrez and Scyther, who Goldfish is easily able to take down. Stupidly easy start to this Elite Four, just shows you the power of Mullet and Goldfish. Second to this Elite Four then is Bertha, and I have a type advantage here, so let's hope for another smooth battle. Bertha starts with Hippowdon, and I start once again with Mullet. Once I've got an Intimidate off, I switch into Oyster. This lets me set up the rain, boosting my water attacks. This boost lets me one-shot the Hippo with a Surf. Perfect. Second is Golem, who thanks to Focus Sash does survive a single attack, but the Rock is only able to hit back with the Stone Edge the Oyster tanks like it's nothing. A second Surf is then enough for another easy KO. Third is Donphan, so you guessed it, Surf picks up another KO. Fourth is Wishcash, who is actually scary thanks to Dragon Darts. Because of this, I switch into Mullet on an Earthquake to get an Intimidate drop. I then switch into Goldfish on a Dragon Dance. That Dragon Dance only brought the stupid ground fish back to neutral attack, so I'm safe to get off another Surf that actually crits, netting me another one-shot. Don't think I needed a crit there, but not going to complain. All that leaves to Bertha are Gliscor and Rhyperior, both of whom go down to another Surf each. Completely walking all over this Elite Four so far. Let's see if Flint can put up any more of the fight. So Flint starts with Ninetales while I start with Mullet. I immediately switch once again into Oyster, which removes the sun. This works perfectly because it stops Solar Beam instantly going off. This lets me protect on the next turn to avoid the grass attack. I'm now in a good position because Ninetales can't really hurt Oyster with anything but Solar Beam, which I can protect against. This means a single Surf should... Oh, okay, never mind. Well, I now know Flint will heal on the following turn, so I'm safe to get Goldfish in. From there, it's all over as Goldfish can outspeed and one-shot every single one of Flint's Pokemon. That was easy. To be honest, the first three members of this Elite Four have gone down like complete bitches, but up next is Lucian, and this fight is never easy. I'd actually argue a lot of the time this fight is as hard as Cynthia, so we're going to need to give it our all to get through this one. So Lucian starts with Espeon, and I start with John Dory. John Dory would probably be outsped here and KO'd by a Fairy attack that I can protect, and thanks to Speed Boost, I now outspeed the Evolution. This means a single Crunch is enough for a one-shot. Second is Medicham, so I go through another Protect, causing High Jump Kick to fail. This means Medicham loses half its HP, setting John Dory up for another easy KO. Third for Lucian is Executor, so I go through a Life Orb boosted Crunch for another easy KO. Oh shit. Rest in peace, John Dory. I'm shocked that didn't KO, honestly. It's not like the coconut tree is that tanky, and John Dory was holding a life orb. This is going to make the rest of this fight more awkward, but at least Oyster can come in and revenge kill with a single signal beam. Fourth for Lucian is Girafarig, who does threaten with a Thunderbolt. Oyster is tanky enough to take a few hits though, so I'm actually able to KO the Giraffe, even if Oyster is brought low and paralyzed in the process. Next is Galactic, who actually isn't a problem. I can switch into Mullet on a Psycho Cut, and thanks to Intimidate, it doesn't do a huge amount. A single bounce is then enough for a one-shot. All that leaves is Starmie, who is actually pretty threatening without John Dory. I decide on Squid, who is immune to the Thunderbolt on the switch. Squid then takes a really hard Psychic before just missing the KO with a single Thunderbolt. Annoyingly, had I attacked again, I would be in a really good position because Lucian heals on the following turn, but instead I Protect, which is a pretty big misplay. Protecting there means instead of KOing the Starfish with another Thunderbolt after taking another hard Psychic, Squid is only able to bring the Starfish back down into the red. This has left me in a really awkward spot because the only Pokemon I have left that can outspeed and finish this thing off is Goldfish, but I need Goldfish to get in safely here, and that means I need a sacrifice. Unfortunately, I decide to let Oyster go down as he's the least useful member of my team left for our final fight. Rest in peace, Oyster. My misplay cost you your life. With that, Goldfish is able to bring us the win, but we're down to 4 Pokemon, meaning Cynthia is not going to be easy. We've come this far though, so let's see if we can pull off a win. So Cynthia starts with Spiritomb and I start with Goldfish. I can start this battle with a Choice Specs boosted Moonblast that takes the ghost down. Good start. Second is Roserade, so I switch into Mullet. Mullet takes a really hard Leaf Storm on the switch, and unfortunately, I'm pretty sure even with the attack drop, he won't survive another. That means sacking Mullet here to get Love Disc back in, but Mullet says not today and survives on 3 HP. God, Mullet's a badass. He's able to survive and then one-shot the Roserade with a bounce. Mullet, you're insane. Somehow he survived though, meaning he not only has taken down the Roserade, but he's also able to get good damage off into the Togekiss before finally going down. Rest in peace, Mullet. You didn't need to go that hard, but I'm not surprised that you did. With Mullet down, Squid is able to come in and finish off the Togekiss with a Thunderbolt. Fourth, the Cynthia is her always scary Garchomp, so I switch into Dogfish on an Earthquake. Rest in peace, Dogfish. Honestly, I think bringing the Tentacruel was a mistake for this Elite Four, but hey, at least he did something, even if it was die. With Dogfish down, Goldfish can come in and one-shot the Garchomp with a Moonblast. 2 more Pokemon left then, the first of which is Lucario. Luckily, Lucario can be handled pretty easily thanks to High Jump Kick. High Jump Kick means I can switch into Squid and then get lucky with a double protect through an easy knockout. All that leaves then is Milotic, and despite being super tanky, Squid can 1v1 this overgrown eel and eventually take down the Milotic for the victory. That means we've done it. We've once again beaten Renegade Platinum. This ROM hack is always a joy to play through, so I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Sorry about the slow uploads lately, had a lot going on in my personal life, but for all you guys that stick around and support what I do, just know it's appreciated. I'll see you all next time. Bye.